Caitlin Clark's week flipped from celebration to concern. One moment, she stood on a national stage accepting the top honor for a WNBA player. The next, she stepped back from the league's showcase in her home arena. The facts are simple. The impact is not. The recognition came first. Best WNBA player at the Big Summer Awards. A nod to a season that lifted ratings, ticket sales, and a franchise's hopes. A nod to a guard whose range, tempo, and presence changed how the game felt on any given night. That spotlight fit her. It also raised the stakes for what came next. Then came a groin flare-up in the closing moments against Connecticut. Not a dramatic collapse, not a stretcher scene, just a star grabbing at her side, testing a step, and knowing the difference between toughness and risk. Evaluation followed. Everyone waited. The decision landed soon after. She skipped All-Star Weekend, no All-Star game, no three-point contest, not even in front of her home crowd. She said she was disappointed. She said she would rest. She said she would still show up, just not in a jersey. That message set the tone. Health first, team always, fans still matter. Her plan for the weekend was clear. Be present, be visible, cheer her teammates, take photos, sign a few things, keep the weekend's energy up even if the ball stayed out of her hands. She had the captain's name. She kept the captain's voice. The league needed a shooter to fill the open three-point slot. The choice stayed in-house. Lexie Hull stepped in. It was earned. She had been one of the most accurate long-range options on Indiana's roster this season. Quiet confidence, clean mechanics, a feel for space. This was her chance to turn steady production into a headline moment. Her emotions were complicated. She had just shared the loss of her dog, Maggie, a companion for most of her life. The tribute was simple and raw. Photos, a few lines about home never feeling the same. The response from the basketball world was immediate. Teammates, former teammates, fans, hundreds of notes that said a version of the same thing. We're with you. Caitlin answered with love. Sophie Cunningham added support. Others followed. The feed filled with hearts and memories. Underneath the public messages was the daily, private thing that makes a team work. Check-ins, hugs, and calls. The loss remained. So did the weekend. Lexie would shoot with a full heart. Sophie Cunningham's place in this story matters. She came in to add edge, spacing, and veteran voice. She brought all three. She also brought a line you can't measure. Certainty that someone will set the tone when it gets physical. Earlier in the season, when contact around Caitlin crossed a line, Sophie was the first into the fray. It cost her time on the floor that night. It earned her credibility in the locker room that lasted far longer. Sophie's protection isn't just about dust-ups. It's in the early foul she takes to stop a run. It's in the hard cut that frees a shooter. It's in the huddle when she says, "We're fine, keep playing." It's in the shot she's made when the spacing tightened and Indiana needed a release valve. The message is the same each time. Not on our watch. Fans noticed. Media noticed. And then, in a moment that blended humor and unity, Sophie walked in wearing a custom Trelicha shirt with cartoon faces of Caitlin, Sophie, and Lexie. The nickname stuck. The dessert pun made people smile. The point was more serious. 3 players with different games. One identity built on trust. The trio works because each brings a different gear. Caitlin bends a defense the second she crosses half court. Lexie punishes rotations and thrives on timing. Sophie supplies physical backbone and veteran nerve. On good nights, that mix looks inevitable. On hard nights, it looks stubborn. Either way, it looks connected. All-Star Weekend moved ahead without the league's most watched player on the floor. The building stayed loud. The events rolled on. The cameras still found her on the sideline, in conversation, laughing with young fans, and celebrating others. There's value in that. Fans travel for the feeling as much as the box score. She kept that feeling alive. The bigger picture for Indiana did not change. The plan is built around a young star and a front-court anchor, supported by shooters who can defend, and veterans who can steady a fourth quarter. That plan requires health. It also requires the kind of culture that survives rough stretches. They've been building both. The injury reality is straightforward. Groin strains need time. Pushing risks setbacks. Rest is not a headline. It is, however, a strategy. The aim is clear. Return at full strength. Not in a loop of almost ready. That call matters more in a season that still has room for a playoff push. While she rested, others stepped forward. Kelsey Mitchell reminded the league, again, that she can take over late. Aaliyah Boston did the things that look ordinary only because she makes them routine. Screens at perfect angles, glass-eating rebounds, and the footwork that fixes broken possessions. Rotations shifted. Roles expanded. Indiana kept grinding. There was a comeback that turned heads. Down big, Indiana clawed back, possession by possession, and flipped a game that looked over. It wasn't about one shot. It was about pace control, second efforts, and patience against pressure. That kind of win feeds a locker room for weeks. Sophie, of course, had her own health scare later. A knee knock, more evaluation, the timing layered concern on top of concern. Family and fans posted frustration about player safety and officiating. Coaches kept it measured. The line between physical and reckless is debated every night in this league. Indiana has lived on that line more than most. The national view of the Fever changed over the past year. First, the story was simply Caitlin. Then it became Caitlin and the noise around her. Now it looks more like a team with backbone, clear roles, and a set of habits that travel. The team has weathered rough officiating nights, hot shooting from opponents, and the weight that follows any franchise seen as a ratings engine. They're learning to be more than a story. They're learning to be a standard. Back to the weekend. Lexie put on the warm-ups and took her spot on the three-point stage. The goal was simple: shoot her rhythm, not the moment. Fans in the building knew what it meant. She wasn't just a replacement. She was representing a city and a group that had her back on a hard week. Make or miss, that kind of belief sticks. Caitlin's presence mattered there too. A nod after a rack, a smile after a make, a quick word that says, "You're good." Captains lead in different ways. Sometimes by scoring, sometimes by a look that calms the air. She gave the second because the first wasn't on the table. Sophie, as always, found the camera with an expression that said ready. Whether she played that weekend or not, her role as tone setter stayed the same. She is the one who talks about the standard in simple terms. It sounds like this: we compete, we care, we finish. The Trebuchet's thing won't win a game by itself, but the bond behind it can. It shows up in a chase-down contest that forces a miss. It shows up in the extra pass instead of a tough pull-up. It shows up when a screen is held for a half-second longer so the angle hits right. Fans feel it. Opponents feel it. It changes how close games end. What happens next is familiar to anyone who's watched teams grow. There's a stretch of schedule where they need to stack wins. There's a week where the legs feel heavy. There's a road trip that tests focus. There's a practice where something small finally clicks. Maybe a horn set that cleans up late-game spacing, or a defensive coverage that removes a mismatch. Momentum comes from details. Caitlin's recovery will dictate plenty. The groin needs calm, then ramp, then proof. Medical staff will move step by step. No one will circle a date in ink. The goal is availability when it matters most. If she clears each stage, the Fever get back the downhill burst and the logo threat that rearranges matchups every night. Lexie's arc continues regardless. She has the frame and the footwork to guard up a position, and the shot to punish help. The league knows it now. A contest slot confirmed it. A full season will underline it. Her growth is the kind that wins close games in arenas that get loud. Sophie's presence remains the hinge. On the floor, she gives an identity. Tough, direct, and unfazed. Off the floor, she keeps the temperature where it needs to be. That combination is rare. It is also exactly what a young core needs when expectations jump. The Fever's ceiling is higher than last year because their baseline is stronger. The bad quarters aren't as bad. The good quarters are cleaner. The habits are deeper. That's what allows a team to survive injuries, hostile crowds, and off nights from stars. That's what allows a franchise to shift from hope to belief. There's also the city. Indianapolis embraced the spotlight and filled the building. The weekend showed why this market works for women's basketball. Families in matching jerseys. Kids holding homemade signs. The kind of noise that makes a contest feel like a final. That relationship between team and town matters in the long run. It can carry a group through slumps and lift them in crunch time. Strip away the headlines and the core looks like this: a superstar learning when to sprint and when to sit. A shooter turning opportunity into identity. A veteran making sure no one gets pushed around. A locker room that answers loss with love. A fan base that shows up whether the star plays or not. The message to close is straightforward. Caitlin Clark earned the biggest summer award in the sport. She then chose rest over risk and stayed visible for her teammates and fans. Lexie Hull stepped into the three-point spotlight during a week of personal grief and carried herself with calm. Sophie Cunningham kept the edge, kept the voice, and kept the standard. Indiana kept pushing. Tell us what you saw. Did the weekend change how you view this team? Did Lexie's moment hit you as much as her shots? Did Sophie's example feel like the heartbeat every contender needs? Drop your read in the comments. If you're new here, subscribe for daily clean breakdowns, no fluff, just facts, and the human side that brings this league to life.
Under the surface, the decision-making around a groin strain is straightforward. Soft tissue injuries respond to rest, controlled mobility, and a careful ramp. The steps are predictable. Reduce discomfort, restore range and strength, reintroduce load at game speed. Any shortcut risks recurrence. A recurrence would be worse than a missed weekend. The Fever's medical and performance staff know this well. The player knows it too. The league schedule is long. The postseason sits later. The logical choice is to pause now, protect later, and re-enter when the body says yes, not maybe. All-Star Weekend still delivered value without on-court minutes. Visibility matters. Fan engagement matters. A captain who is present at community events and who takes time for supporters preserves trust. That effort keeps the market energized and protects the momentum the franchise has built. It also insulates teammates from the full blast of attention. When the biggest name stays in the building, attention spreads across the roster. Role players get interviews, coaches get questions about schemes, not just one star's health. That balance helps a locker room breathe. For Lexie Hull, the three-point contest slot was more than a replacement line. It functioned as a live referendum on shooting form and mental routine. Contest shooting is a discipline. Same arc, same base, same breath. The crowd roars and the tempo wants to rush you. The best shooters ignore the noise and repeat the same motion. Hull's profile fits that template. Balanced feet, quiet release, follow through that holds. The larger message is simple. When a team invests in spacing, it needs specialists who can perform under a spotlight. She fits. The personal context around Hull mattered too. Grief and performance often collide in sports. Athletes show up even when life aches. The response from teammates after her loss reinforced a basic truth about team dynamics. Support is not a slogan, it is time, attention, and presence. When peers reply with real empathy, a group gets stronger. That strength shows up later in a road game, when legs are heavy. It shows up when a screen must be held a fraction longer. Intangibles are not invisible. They are just hard to measure until the fourth quarter. Sophie Cunningham's leadership continues to define the Fever's edge. She communicates in plain terms. She sets physical tone without theater. She absorbs attention so younger players can focus on execution. When contact around star guards escalates, she does not guess. She sets boundaries with clean force, and then moves on. That posture discourages the borderline stuff that can spiral a game. It also tells officials what the team expects: clarity, consistency, and room for skill. A group that trusts its veteran voice defends more cleanly and runs offense with fewer doubts. Coaching philosophy deserves mention. Indiana's staff emphasizes spacing, pace control, and decisive reads. With Clark available, the floor stretches naturally. Without her, the concepts remain the same. Touch the paint, collapse help, find the next pass, use the corners. The difference is in initiation. More sets start through the elbow. More actions flow through screen. The screener looks to free shooters. Aaliyah Boston's decision-making becomes central. The goal is identical either way: create high-value shots and deny live ball turnovers that fuel opponent runs. Defensively, the Fever adjust their coverage based on personnel. With a primary ball handler out, more energy can shift to stunting and recovering toward opposing stars. The wings carry a heavier burden at the nail. Rotations tighten. Late clock discipline improves because it has to. That defensive identity has been built in layers. Communication first. Clean tags on rollers. No empty corners conceded without a plan. The most visible changes are in the last few minutes. Fewer gambles, more two-on-the-ball discipline, and a quick peel switch if a matchup fails. The officiating conversation is constant league-wide. Players want protection on airborne shooters, clear penalties for face contact, and consistency around freedom of movement. Coaches want predictability from quarter to quarter. Fans want the best players available and safe. The Fever's season has featured several high-emotion moments that tested those lines. The practical takeaway is mature. Control what you can control. Run the next action. Sit in a stance. Close on balance. Force opponents to beat the scheme, not the whistle. Teams that live there most nights outlast chaos. Public expectation around Caitlin Clark remains intense. The challenge is to separate interest from pressure. Interest boosts attendance and media coverage. Pressure can push a player to return too soon. The balance is maintained by honest medical reporting and disciplined decision-making. Clear communication helps. When updates emphasize progress by steps, not promises by dates, the conversation stabilizes. That approach has served other stars across sports. It builds credibility with fans and reduces noise in the locker room. From a roster standpoint, the Fever benefit from layers. Shot creation does not sit with one name. Kelsey Mitchell's burst and pull-up range can anchor stretches. Secondary creators can run second units through basic actions that travel pin-downs into dribble handoffs, cross-screen into post touches, empty side pick and roll. Shooters like Hull punish help. Veterans like Cunningham clean up the margins with screens, cuts, and extra passes. The front court fixes possessions with offensive rebounds and kickouts. That blend produces sustainable offense even on average shooting nights. Culture amplifies all of it. The Tree Leshes note started as a light moment. It has become shorthand for chemistry. Trios function best when roles are owned. Value is recognized and communication is clean. One bends the floor, one stretches it, one steadies it. When that triangle is intact, opponents must pick a poison on every trip. When one point of the triangle is missing, the other two expand their zones without complaint. That is how standards become habits, and how habits become wins. Market impact is real. Indianapolis has responded with enthusiasm that does not depend on a single box score. Families show up early. Young players study footwork and release points in warm-ups. The atmosphere carries through the undercard events and into the main slate. That environment attracts neutral fans and creates repeat attendance. A strong market also supports player-led initiatives in the community. Clinics, school visits, and charity events gain traction because the faces are familiar. A healthy ecosystem surrounds the team. Media framing has shifted too. Early coverage centered on celebrity and ratings. More recent segments track player development, tactical evolution, and resilience under duress. That is positive. It recognizes that a young star is part of a program, not a standalone trend. It highlights coaching work. It spotlights role players who deliver in the shadows. It teaches casual audiences what to watch beyond highlights. Educated fans become committed fans. Committed fans sustain a league. The mental side of rehab deserves a line. Athletes at this level are wired to compete. Sitting can feel like a loss even when it is the right call. Good programs counter that with structure. Daily checkpoints, clear targets, film work that keeps the mind fast while the body heals, leadership opportunities from the bench. A player returns sharper because the game never stopped upstairs. That preparation compresses the ramp when minutes resume. The first game back looks less like a restart and more like a continuation. Late season goals remain unchanged. Secure position. Enter the postseason healthy. Carry an identity that does not require hot shooting to win. The formula is classic. Guard the arc, own the glass, win the turnover margin. Manufacture free throws without chasing fouls. Close quarters with 2-for-1 awareness. Limit live ball mistakes. Those habits decide series. They also travel. When a team can summon its floor every night, the ceiling becomes available when shots fall. Individual arcs continue alongside team aims. Clark progresses through rehab with patience and purpose. Hull stacks reps and expands responsibilities beyond catch-and-shoot duties. Cunningham anchors the standard and manages her own health for the stretch run. Others fill gaps that become strengths. A rotation learns where it is strong and where it must hide. That awareness guides game plans against specific opponents. It also builds trust. Trust shortens slumps and lengthens runs. Nothing about this month changes the core summary. A marquee player earned a major honor, and then chose health over hype. A shooter seized an opportunity while carrying personal grief with poise. A veteran enforced boundaries and kept the tone competitive and calm. A locker room stayed aligned. A city showed up. The path ahead is steady. Get healthy, stay connected, keep the standard. Your read matters here. Did the injury management reassure you or worry you? Did the three-point stage amplify Lexie's profile the way you expected? Did Sophie's presence feel like the missing layer on past fever teams? Add your take in the comments. If this kind of grounded, clean breakdown helps you follow the season, subscribe and share. We'll track the return, the rotations, and the runs. Fact first, noise last.